And I'm like, okay, so the way we're doing this is we're asking everybody to download a gigabyte of data and then throw away like 60, 70% of it.
Did you know that for years, geospatial professionals have been forced to download massive datasets only to throw out most of the data? It's an outdated, inefficient process, and it's holding back the future of geospatial analysis. But a major shift is happening. Cloud-Native Geospatial is revolutionizing how we store, access, and compute geospatial data, making it faster, more scalable, and accessible to everyone. Today, I'm joined by Jed Sundewald, Executive Director of Radiant Earth, to talk about how this movement started, where it's headed, and why it matters for anyone working with spatial data. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, stay tuned and be sure to follow all the way through for some important information about the CNG Forum. Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode. I'm happy to have Jed Sundewald here. He is the Executive Director of Radiant Earth, and we're going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is Cloud-Native Geospatial, and some of the things that are happening within that community. But Jed, I just wanted to say thank you first of all, and tell me a little bit about kind of what you're up to and what things have been going on.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, no, thank you. I mean, thanks for having me on here. This is great. Awesome to see how you do this. So I'm executive director of Radiant Earth. We're a nonprofit. Our mission, our stated mission, is to increase shared understanding of our world through community-led efforts that make data easier to access and use. And as you mentioned, one of those things is what we call the Cloud-Native Geospatial Forum, where we sort of see our job as creating an environment like a forum where geospatial data users, the people who it is their job to fight with data all day and figure out how to work with increasingly large volumes of data, to come together in a vendor neutral space and just talk about what works and doesn't work. So yeah, that's and I want to emphasize also, that we're very grateful to you for being on the editorial board of the forum. Like I said, Radiant Earth is all about community-led efforts to make data easier to access and use. And so if you go to the Cloud-Native Geo website, cloudnativegeo.org, the only faces you really see on there are our editorial board. And it's a group of amazing, generous people who are leaders in the community that are willing to, share their knowledge with everyone else. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I thank you. I mean, obviously for the opportunity. It's been cool to see that group come together. I mean, there's people that I knew, people I didn't know, but all kind of leading a lot of different things. So it's pretty interesting once you see some of the emails get going about some different topics and the ideas start rolling. Like it's that's been fun to get going. But let's kind of rewind a little bit to talk about, obviously, CNG has kind of evolved a bit. And obviously, I want to get to the event that's coming up this year, which I think is going to be important for a lot of people. But how did CNG evolve to the point kind of where it's at today?
Yeah, so I mean, if we go back the whole story, it's actually a 10-year story now. I just realized this recently. So it was about 10 years ago. 10 years ago today, we were in the process of bringing Landsat data onto AWS. I used to run the open data program at AWS. And one of the first big things I did there was bring Landsat into S3. And at the time, sort of the normal way of sharing raster data or Landsat data was you just download a gigabyte TIFF file and then you do what you want with it and whatever. But the first step is downloading a gigabyte of data, which is still a pain. That takes time. And in the process of bringing Landsat onto AWS, I asked everybody I could find who used Landsat data. I said, how much of this data do you actually use? You get 12 bands, maybe 13 bands. There's, because there's a QA band in there. And I'm like, how much of that do you use? And they're like, I don't know, 3 or 4 bands, maybe, And I'm like, okay, so the way we're doing this is we're asking everybody to download a gigabyte of data and then throw away 60, 70% of it every time. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And so I was really emphatic that we would have to create a pipeline where we unpacked the tarballs and just hosted the TIFFs individually on S3. And we worked really closely with Planet on this, with Frank Warmerdam, Amit Kapadia at Planet, and then Peter Becker at Esri was also very involved. And it was Peter Becker who's like, you should do internal tiling on these TIFFs. And full disclosure, like I had no idea what he was talking about. Like I was not, I was not also like a geospatial guy at the time. And long story short is we put internal tiling and overviews in the bucket with the TIFF files that we hosted, and that was what turned out to be like sort of the prototype of the cloud optimized GeoTIFF. Chris Holmes then sort of took the concept, gave it the name, the Cloud Optimized GeoTIFF, and evangelized it. And now it's like the standard way that you host Landsat data. But that was, I think, really where it all started, where we were in an interesting position where, AWS, people sort of pay attention to what AWS does. And right. We put a ton of data on S3, and it was immediately apparent to people. It's like, wow, this is a much better way to work with the data, and we can build applications in real time on the web. And that led to, eventually STAC, the creation of STAC, the metadata specification for sharing lots of data in object stores. And an entire community emerged around this sort of thing. And so now we find ourselves in this position where we're like, okay, well, how do we just keep that going? And really the answer we've come to is like, just getting people together who like to work on stuff and having them talk to each other and see what they come up with. so the Cloud-Native Geospatial Forum is just kind of an attempt at formalizing that with a very light touch, which is just like, can we repeat this process of getting people together to hack on things together?
So, yeah. And
that's the whole story.
I think, yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what comes out of some of the where the conference goes, because I think, two things that I've noticed about when I first started really talking about and using some of the cloud native formats is, number one is, it felt like, oh, it's only cloud, and oh, it's only big data, right?
Yeah.
And that was like I'm trying to like kind of reposition that a little bit, because while yes, it can scale up significantly to large volume, it doesn't necessarily have to, and there's still a significant benefit in terms of simplicity and even speed, just if I'm doing this on my computer alone, and there's a lot that you can do there. The second bit is also kind of, okay, now that we have, I think, a pretty robust ecosystem in place for storage, what does the compute layer start to look like, which is kind of the other component when we talk about cloud native, the broader cloud native computing. What does that look like as well? So, I mean, I think those two pieces are interesting, and I think, ones we'll start to kind of see a little bit, come out of the conference. But the forum, I should say.
Well, it's the conference. It's the forum conference.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the forum, because I think it's the first time that this has happened, right? That's
right. This is our first in-person event that we've ever done like this. We did a virtual event in November. There are YouTube videos of that somewhere. I should figure out how to send that around. But yeah, we have YouTube videos from the virtual event we did in November last year, and now we're doing our first in-person conference at Snowbird in Utah, April 30th to May 2nd.
Nice.
And cloudnativegeo.org/Utah, and you'll go to the website.
Awesome. What's going to be there? What can people kind of expect? What's the goals, outcomes? Yeah.
So the way that we're kind of aiming to do this, I mean, we're not being we can't really control the mix of people who are buying tickets. But the conference is very much aimed at practitioners. So in sort of my fantasy is that we would have about 65% of the audience be geospatial data practitioners, builders, developers. Like I said before, people who it is their job to touch data, fight with it, and build tools to work with it. Maybe about 20% are newcomers, students, young people, and then also people that have been working in, I would say, more traditional GIS, but they have sort of reached the limits of desktop-based software, and they're looking for what's next. So about 20% that, and then why did I do this to myself? I have to do this math. I think the remaining 15% are more sort of executive types, people with purchasing power and decision making at sort of higher levels to have conversations around data licensing, business models, policy, things like that that need to happen. So
yeah.
And,
So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I was gonna say, like in terms of like how things are shaping up, though, like it's been really remarkable to see the response. I mean, two of the first people to submit ideas for presentations were from the Flemish Marine Institute, or like the Flanders Marine Institute in Brussels, and then like the government of South Australia, which
Yeah.
like I don't know what the I didn't know South Australia was a thing, and so we got people from all over the world wanting to fly in and
Yeah.
talk about what they're doing. But we've got the World Bank, the New York Times, NOAA, a lot of the usual suspects, Development Seed, Element 84, they're going to
Wow.
come out. But it's a good conference.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because I think there's been, I talk to and hear a lot from, folks working, well, folks both working in and with the data. And there is
Yeah,
kind of this like, I get a lot of questions. Where should I be learning about this cloud native stuff? Right. And I
yeah,
know there's been like, a lot of the folks on the editorial board have tutorials spread across the ether of the internet. But I think it's going to be cool to bring that together in one place, and actually you can pretty much advance and see how not only learn it, but how it's kind of coming together in real time. But then I really like the added part because I get a lot of questions about, well, how can I integrate this into what I'm doing and start to advance my geospatial data stack to work in this way. And
yeah.
there's a lot of folks that are building both the teams and the skills and working on that. And I'm pretty hopeful that this will be a good place to start to learn that from a really cool mix of folks doing this type of stuff. So
Well, yeah, I mean, we hope so too. Like I said, like we've never done this before, and one of the big tracks of the conference is the on ramp to cloud native geospatial,
yep.
and we have some good workshops being lined up for that. But yeah, this is something I'm like really eager to see if we can pull off, and
Yeah.
like do some surveys after to be like, were we able to educate people and grow our community? I mean, I think you've probably perceived this as well. Our community is like we all know each other. Like, we all see each other at the same conferences. We're all friends. It's great.
Yep.
We love each other. I'm not mad about it, but I'm like, we need to grow this community on purpose.
Mhm.
And so that's going to be a big part of the goal of the event.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in-person events is starting to, I mean, really become. I mean, it's not that it was never, it didn't go away. It just obviously hit pause for a few years. But I think
Yeah.
people have that kind of energy, and I think there's a ton of energy around using them to really learn. Right? It's not going to be sitting and listening, but there's like a ton of response to that. Like we just had we were at the Geospatial Risk Summit, and there's a
Yeah.
day's worth of workshops. People writing code all day. And I think
Love it.
like that energy is going to be really cool. Plus, it's in a pretty cool place. Utah is one of 4 states I haven't been to. I'll be honest.
Oh,
And so like I'm. Tell me about snowbird because I have no idea.
oh, I mean, it's spectacular. Look, it's very funny that we're doing it in Utah because I was born in Salt Lake City, and
Oh yeah,
my family lives there, or my mom and my siblings. Uh, but it was not my idea to do it in Utah. It was Michelle on our team who's like, I think we should do it in Utah, and then one of our board members also recommended it, and I was
yeah,
like, well, that actually sounds like a great idea, and so um, we found out that Snowbird they've got like a phenomenal event space. I've
yeah,
gone and visited it. It's beautiful up in the canyon, not too far from Salt Lake, and it kind of like it really seems to be kind of like a sweet spot where you've got a really good airport that's easy for most people to get to, and not a huge drive from that airport to get up into the mountains and be somewhere beautiful. And um, working with Michelle as we were sort of designing the conference, that's one of the first things we really agreed on, is that like we got to figure out how to bring people somewhere that's beautiful, like where they,
mhm,
they really want to be. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too hippy dippy, but I'm like, we're geospatial people, like let's like love the earth a little bit and be
yeah.
somewhere that's just like great. So I'm really
I think
excited about it.
I think I've had this conversation with a few folks at Whereabouts, and we're like, there's got to be a strong correlation to like mountains, hiking, skiing, and folks in geospatial. Like it just seems like
Yeah,
there's like everyone's like, oh, we're going skiing, we're going skiing, we're going skiing, and like so I'm like, okay, I think it makes sense
yeah.
that tracks me.
I mean, actually, I've got pretty strong feelings about some of this stuff. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with like Sat Camp. So Sat Camp is another event that's been happening over the past few years, which is like, hey, let's go like gravel biking and trail running and all this sort of stuff. And which I'm down. I love trail running.
Yep.
But this is actually a thing that concerns me a little bit about our communities being maybe a little too like bro-y in that way, or it's not just bros. There are a lot of, fortunately, we have a lot of gender diversity as well in the community, but like it's still, I think that a lot of people are intimidated. They're like, look, I don't know what a gravel bike even is, or like I've never run a mile in my life. Like I'm not welcome there. And so I'm kind of hoping we can do a little bit of both. We can bring people to the mountains. They're going to be in a really nice hotel and they'd be very comfortable. And if they want to, maybe they can go on a hike.
Right.
And so like just have both. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are going to be like backcountry skiing or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody. But I mean, but I'm also serious about this. When I talk about bringing people in the community, new people in the community, this is maybe just me fantasizing a little bit, but like I do hope that someone comes and they come to the conference, they have a great time, and they go on a hike for the first time in their life, and that has a good impact.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm daydreaming here, but
I think no, it's fair. I mean, I'm very much, I'm trying to blank. I totally lost my track of thought. But good news, we can edit this out. No, I mean, I think that having that space, I mean, regardless, you're out in nature, it's beautiful, but you can also have the option, to learn different things. I mean, not just from the core of what you're doing day to day, but also expand those things, but also kind of expand some different things and learn from the space you're in as well, which is, I mean, honestly,
yeah,
it's pretty much what we're doing every day is learning about the spaces we live in. So that makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So for people who are interested, and I hope you are interested, after we had this discussion, what should they do? Where should they go? What's kind of the plan from here?
Sure. So, I mean, the easy thing is, cloud-nativegeo.org. There's a big yellow button to like learn about the conference, if you're interested in that. You can also become a member of Cloud Native Geo. So the way the forum works and what we're trying to do here is figure out, can we get the community to fund us to keep it going operationally so that we can, the mission of the organization is to make geospatial data easier to access and use. And you'll notice it's not like the mission isn't to like get it into the cloud or get people to adopt the cloud. We refer to the forum as CNG. We just call it CNG kind of to get cloud out of people's mouths for the same reasons you said before, where people are like, oh, do I have to use the cloud for this? We're like, no, what this is really about is just making geospatial data easier to access and use. And so you can join the forum, you can have your company join the forum, fund us so that we can make these things happen. And the goal is to make as much free content available as possible. The conference isn't free because it takes money to put on a conference, but it's going to produce a lot of potentially videos and other blog posts and follow-up tutorial content that we want to make available for free. And I feel really strongly about this as the internet gets kind of just cruftier and more covered with ads and spam and stuff like that, that like I want people all over the world to be like, I'm interested in GeoParquet, or I'm interested in, whatever the new thing is that they're interested in. They search for it. They end up on cloud-nativegeo.org and they're like, wow, this is a site that loads quickly, has no ads like popping up all over the place, and I'm learning from. And like that's the kind of brand we're trying to create. So go to cloud-nativegeo.org, join if you can, and come to the conference if you can. The only other thing I'll say is that the hotel is awesome. And we have an amazing rate. So like it's a great rate. So that's all. Normally like these rooms are quite expensive. I don't know how we pulled this off. I think Luis on our team did some magic.
All right. Well, that should be incentive for everyone. Is there like sorry, we'll cut this out. Is there an early bird window or something like that?
Yes, I think we had super early bird ticket prices. Those are gone. I think we're still in the normal early bird phase. So get your tickets now. And then also, if you want to do like a group ticket buy, let me know. So you can you could write me directly at jed@radiant.earth. And if you want to talk about group ticket sales.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope crossing off one more state. I'll be down to 3 then. So I have, I'm close, but yeah. So.
I'm impressed. I'm not anywhere near that, I don't think.
My first job out of college it required a lot of traveling. So I quickly covered a lot of territory, and it's down to Alaska, Hawaii, Utah, and Wyoming. And
those are like the 4 of the best states.
I know.
They're
I say it,
amazing.
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
I've never been
I've
to Alaska, but like,
yeah.
there's no doubt in my mind. It's amazing.
I know it has to be. So I'm gonna check off one. It's gonna be a nice place, and I get to do it with people talking about cloud native geospatial, which is gonna be exciting. So yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll put a bunch of links down in the show notes, so you can check that out, get registered, sign up for the forum, and get some more information there. But Jed, yeah, thank you again for taking some time
Yeah,
out of
man.
your busy schedule. I know you're working on a lot of very important stuff. I'm sure you'll talk more about that soon. But yeah, I'm excited and looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Awesome.